welcome back to another episode of the Hubscale Podcast. Here we have Silvio. Silvio, how's it going?
Good, Nathan. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad myself, thanks. Not too bad. Please give yourself a bit of an introduction, bit of an overview of your career, how you got to where you are today, and just a bit of a run over the last couple of decades.
Sure. I think the gray speaks for the decades. Silvio Pappalardo, currently the CRO at SandboxAQ. Career has been, it's never linear, right? I think people always think that, hey, high school, college, and then there's some sort of linear path to a 30-year career. Mine's taken a couple of turns and had some inflection points. Started off in engineering, believe it or not, but not computer science. I decided on civil engineering back in the late 80s, early 90s, for no other reason than, during orientation, you see everybody that's outside surveying. I'm like, hey, that's a cool job. I'm not stuck in an office all day. What is that? Civil engineering kind of went into it, had some family members in it. Prior to graduating, though, I had done an internship with an investor relations consulting firm and really enjoyed some of the sales aspect of that, right? So I got brought to the CEO, with the CEO to various meetings, selling, reports for, certain financial service organizations that they're sponsored ADRs, et cetera. Really enjoyed it. So that was actually my first job out of college. I don't even think it's on my LinkedIn. It was so long ago. That really got me started on, the sales track. So went from there, automatic data processing, like hardcore door-to-door sales, payroll, tax services, etc. Uh, if you really want to know if you have a thick enough skin for sales, I think that's the best way to go. Not that it's really feasible in 2025 anymore. Um, in parallel to that, background in martial arts, multilingual, grew up overseas. So I had the opportunity to meet the special agent in charge of the Newark division while I was volunteering for a defensive tactics seminar. Asked me to apply, applied, got accepted. Full day evaluation in front of a panel of 8 people. I just went like, hey, let's do this as fun. I don't have a military background. I wasn't transferring from another law enforcement agency. Passed, got accepted, 16-week training, did it for about 3 years and realized it was a little too restrictive for my personality, like so many guardrails, even on how you conduct investigations, etc. So I left, and that's when I left New Jersey, moved to the DC area. By chance, ended up getting connected with someone at ISC Squared, early days of the CISSP certification, and that kind of reshaped my career on combining sales and cybersecurity, right? Somebody said, hey, look, you have a very good investigative background. The engineering is very process driven. So 4 years of doing that, and you learn a lot through osmosis, a lot of training classes. You absorb a lot from just looking at the exams, the training programs, the 10 domains in the common body of knowledge for the CISSP. And that pretty much set my career in cybersecurity and sales, and then just slowly progressed through the ranks, right? Been through multiple acquisitions, both as an individual contributor, and then in 2016, I headed up sales and marketing at a startup called Invotas, which was acquired by FireEye, and that again changed the trajectory of my career.
Nice. Thanks for the detailed overview. Interesting that you come from that engineering background. A lot of the best sales reps and sales leaders do because, as you mentioned, it's very process orientated. Talk to me about the couple of years you were with Invitas before the really successful acquisition by FireEye, where you were heading worldwide sales and marketing and leading a team of 14 reports, right? Talk to me about those 2 years.
So you always hear about experience trumping, experience is key. That was probably the best learning experience of my career, right? You went in eyes wide open, and there were so many mistakes that we made, but you learn from those, right? The capacity to learn, adapt, figure things out for yourself was really, really enlightening. It really changed my mind that sales is a performance-based profession as opposed to knowledge-based. So if you look at engineers, developers, et cetera, it's really of a knowledge-based profession. Whereas in sales, it's performance-based. At the end of the day, nobody cares if you know how to sell, if you understand the processes, can you execute and can you deliver? That was really kind of the highlight of the Invotas days. The other thing was figuring things out. So Paul Wynn, I'd worked for him three other times before at NeoHapsis at KCG, and he brought me into Invotas. We didn't even know what to call this, right? It predated the SOAR category. I'd been on for 2 weeks when we went to RSA, literally flying out there like, okay, what do we call this thing? Okay, security orchestration. Oh, let's add automation. Um, and iterating, but being able to adjust very quickly, trying to figure out your ideal customer profile, the buyer personas, learning about the criticality of getting design partners. So you don't have engineers building a product in a vacuum without real world applicability. Um, those initial design partners were key. It really panned out for us. We had some great design partners in the financial services industry. Uh, Definitely some of the biggest logos in the banking industry that you would recognize. But it was great because even though if you get those clients as a loss leader, they extract value. They're your lighthouse accounts. So that really kind of built the whole roadmap for me that I could just take to any early stage startup or even growth organizations, right? There's a lot of things that can be done in the early stage that you don't think of if you're in a commoditized space. So if you look at the big players, I'm not calling them out, but they're done great. SentinelOne, CrowdStrike. If you're getting into sales, you go in there, great enablement program, but it is a commoditized space. You don't have to think of things for the first time. What is the value proposition? Who's our ideal customer? What's the buyer persona? What's the messaging for the different buyer personas? So that was probably the most fun, but yet the most challenging part. On a personal level, we're all still friends, right? Um, you spend so much time with people when you're an early stage startup that if everyone's aligned, that's probably the biggest leading indicator for success. If you have a lot of internal conflict in an early stage startup between engineering, product, sales, marketing, it just slows the momentum from the go-to-market standpoint, which is why I think you see a lot of recidivists, right? Like people who've worked with each other before, they always get back together because that's the
Hmm.
hardest part to overcome. Like the cultural aspect is just as important, if not more important, than the product and the the whole. Uh,
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense. And talk to me about the transition when FireEye came in and acquired you guys as well, maybe the 6 months after that. And then you stayed there for quite a while, 3.5 years. You were with FireEye. That's rare because most people they work for businesses, they get acquired, they stay for the period of time their contract locks them in for, and then they move on. So it's interesting that you stayed for that long.
FireEye was another great experience, right? So it was okay, large organization. I ran the global product sales specialist team, but I also looked at it from not just, a new role, but a great education, right? So how do I bring myself to the next level in my own career, right? Um, I think one of the things that I bring to the table is having done both early stage startup and worked at large organizations, whether it's FireEye or Absolute Software. Um, you realize that they're two very different skill sets. There's some overlap, but to me, it was like, okay, I'm working for a public company. It totally changes how you operate because all of a sudden, my customers became the core account executives. They own the relationships with the end users. How do we convince them as a specialist team that we're going to add incremental value to their sales motions, get them better integrated with their customers, and not be disruptive or cause complete chaos? It's a little bit different. You'd be surprised how many account executives are protective of their customer base or their prospect base for good reason. That's the source of their income. They've spent years cultivating those relationships, gaining the trust. Last thing you want is some product sales specialist coming in and somehow torpedoing what you've worked on for years in some cases. So that was a great learning experience as well. A lot of travel, but also just learning, certain processes that I wasn't aware of before. Improved certain things that we even did at Invotas, right? because you have such a large organization, so many different skill sets. You get that domain expertise in the various aspects that could really help influence how you structure your teams, your go-to-market, your weekly cadence, even with your own team. So it was very, very interesting and some great people. I mean, to this day, I think some of the best talent I've worked with in the industry, probably Neo Hapsis, very early days, Invotas, and then the whole FireEye Mandiant
Mm.
part of my life. Like you have that very deep cybersecurity subject matter expertise in those
There's
organizations.
there's loads of startups which are born out of FireEye. I work with a few of them. Businesses like Strike Ready, Permiso, obviously, who you went on to head up with obviously some of the senior people from FireEye who started that business, and that was a pure startup, right? When you joined those guys, what was it like going back to sort of the roots of pure startup and scrapping from the heights of FireEye?
To be honest, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment. I really enjoy it, right? It's different. It's maybe it goes back to the engineering days or the law enforcement days. I like figuring things out where there's no template. It really helps where you know the team. So if you look at both co-founders, former FireEye, CTO is former Mandiant, um, you you pretty much put aside the, I wouldn't say politeness, you're still very polite, but there's a level of transparency that you can kind of have right out of the gate, right? Hey guys, here's some gaps we've identified. Our design partners, are they publicly referenceable? There's a lot of dominoes that need to fall into place before sales can execute, right? So I think some organizations maybe bring in a CRO a little bit too early, because you have to develop a product that generates demand, right? I think there's a misnomer in the industry that I keep seeing is that sales is there to generate demand. That's akin to trying to, hammer a square peg in a round hole. Okay, you have a solution, and now you're trying to go look for the problem. Whereas if you develop a product that is really solving a major pain point for the industry or for practitioners, that in turn will generate demand. That's the demand gen. Doesn't mean it's a guaranteed sale. It doesn't mean it's a guaranteed conversion of revenue. There's competing pressures, no action, other vendors, uh, different priorities within the organization. That's really where sales comes in, is to convert that demand to revenue and then minimize churn and maintain it, when you own customer success as well. Um, so I think that's kind of the fun part of knowing the team you're getting in bed with per se, is you can just bypass the politeness. Say, hey guys, this is not a ding on anyone's personality. Don't, like, here's what I need to be able to actually convert this to revenue. And then on the flip side, I appreciate that full transparency and candor back, right?
That's the
So
benefits, isn't it, of working with a team that you're familiar with, which is awesome. Recently, you moved to Sandbox AQ as the CRO of the cybersecurity part of the house. How has this been, and why did you why did you join these guys? What's really exciting about Sandbox at the moment and some of their differentiators?
So the biggest differentiator, which blew my mind, is imagine I guess a startup environment that's fundraised over $1 billion, right? That has a valuation, I think, at 5.5 billion at this point. Because that's always one of the biggest stresses in early stage startups, right? How do you balance the burn versus revenue? How do you offset, the cash burn from, you've probably raised, I don't know, 20, 25 million as a Series A. You want to scale the team. You think you've hit the ICP buyer persona, right? Let's scale the sales team, but there's obviously a ramp. So then the pressure starts coming on. Hey, you're hiring too many people, 9-month ramp for enterprise sales. How do we offset it with revenue? What attracted me here is it gave you the runway to iterate a few times, right? It also sits at the intersection of AI and quantum. Both are very interesting outliers, probably still ahead of the market. But the fact that we have so much runway, being able to dial in and zero in on that next game-changing offering was very appealing to me.
Yeah, interesting. Why do you think it may be a good time for a rep or a sales engineer or someone in marketing to come and join Sandbox at the moment? You know, you've obviously got a lot of cash, a lot of fundraising. It's Series E, 150 mil. You guys are up to at the moment. Why is it a cool, exciting time to come on board?
So without a doubt, I would say the this is an interesting problem to have. The level of talent in the organization from a PhD engineering standpoint is I've never seen its equivalent, right? In such a smaller organization. We're sub 300 people. Why top performing salespeople are kind of needed, or what would be great is you can really make an impact on how do you take all that skill set and convert it to something tangible and generate revenue, right? A lot of theorists, a lot of PhDs, a lot of like huge think tank, but not a lot of startup experience, right? So I think you have the capacity to make more of an impact because again, when you go to a pure play cyber company, it's like, hey, no, this is how we want you to execute on this. Here, it's okay, help me out. Like, here's all the different skill sets and talent that we have. How can we productize this, take it to market, and turn it into a revenue stream? It's a very very interesting and unique challenge, right? Some very very talented people, and part of it is we have our current offerings. But what's fun for me is working with my team is look, go out to your network. We're not selling you something. Yes, we're trying to sell you this. Let's not lie. But here's all these adjacent offerings. Here's what we're thinking of building. Get early adoption. Get design partners. Is this something that would be meaningful and impactful to you in your specific role if we release it in 6 months, 1 year, 18 months, etc. So I think that that's a lot of fun. It's not a one trick pony.
Hmm. Yeah, you guys do have quite a broad range of offerings as well, that I've noticed, which could obviously have multiple use cases, which is fantastic to see. But no, Silvio, it's been awesome to talk. Very excited to watch the journey that you guys are going to go on over the next year, 2 years with Sandbox, and we'll have to do this again in a year's time and talk about the progress.
I appreciate it. Probably be a lot more gray, but looking forward.
Maybe. Take care. Bye bye.